Sharp is one of around a dozen researchers in this field worldwide who are on the receiving end of a campaign to discredit their work. For many scientists, it's a new normal. From climate change to vaccines, activism and science are fighting it out online. Social media platforms are supercharging the battle. A spokesperson for Twitter said the platform exists to serve the public conversation. Its strength lies in providing people with a diversity of perspectives into critical issues, all in real time. Where someone used anonymity for bad purposes, Twitter would take immediate action, the spokesperson added. Chronic fatigue syndrome, also known as myalgic encephalomyelitis, or CFS/ME, is described by specialists as a complex, multi-system, and often devastating disorder. Symptoms include overwhelming fatigue, joint pain, headaches, sleep problems, and isolation. It can render patients bed or housebound for years. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, estimates the illness costs the U.S. economy $17 billion to $24 billion annually in medical bills and lost incomes. It is thought to affect as many as 2.5 million people in the United States. Crowdfunded by a global band of CFS/ME sufferers, their families, and patient activists, Tuller has since October 2015 published more than 140 blog posts amounting to tens of thousands of words attacking studies of psychological treatments and conferences that have showcased them. He's recently complained to the CDC, New York's Columbia University, and Netflix. In 2018, Netflix ran a docu-series about CFS/ME patients. It said it wanted to show the difficulties of patients suffering from elusive and misunderstood illnesses. Sharp no longer conducts research into CFS/ME treatments, focusing instead on helping severely ill cancer patients. It's just too toxic, he explained. Of more than 20 leading research groups who were publishing treatment studies in high-quality journals 10 years ago, Sharp said, only one or two continue to do so. Per Fink, a professor at the Research Clinic for Functional Disorders at Denmark's Aarhus University Hospital, said he kept going because he didn't want to let down patients, some severely ill, who are open to any treatment that may help them. Uncertainty. The term myalgic encephalomyelitis was first used in 1956 to describe a condition associated with post-illness fatigue among patients at London's Royal Free Hospital. 30 years later, the name chronic fatigue syndrome was coined. Now, the combination term CFS/ME is used by most people, patients, doctors, and researchers, and by the U.S. National Institutes of Health. The trigger for the condition is not known, although it can follow a bout of severe illness, or extreme physical endurance, or a viral infection such as glandular fever. There is no biomarker or blood test to establish diagnosis, and patients often face misunderstanding from family, friends, and doctors. Patient advocates say the condition has a history of being dismissed as yuppie flu or plain indolence. With no pharmacological or physiological treatments on the horizon, scientists and doctors explored psychiatry and psychology for ways to ease the symptoms. Some patients and campaigners say that diverted attention and funding away from scientific efforts to define what causes CFS/ME and how it can be properly diagnosed. But he is still the subject of what he calls relentless internet stalking. Recent tweets directed at Wesley include one accusing him of playing pathetic ego-driven games with the lives of people with CFS/ME, another saying Wesley is a dangerous and evil individual, and another saying we die, B/C of you. Wesley's employers at King's College London have taken advice on the potential risk and have instituted X-ray scans of his mail, he says. Everything I say and do in public, and sometimes even in private, is pored over and scrutinized, he said. Fink said he and the organizers of a conference he addressed at Columbia University in New York in October 2018 were hounded by complaints and protests from CFS/ME activists. A petition calling for Fink to be disinvited was signed by 10,000 people. Tuller, who in his blog wrote that the person who invited Per Fink to speak at the conference must be uninformed or stupid, or both, called Fink a scary guy whose methods had destroyed families. Tuller urged readers of his blog to go to the Columbia conference and demonstrate. Social media supercharged the campaign to have evidence-backed treatments discredited was doing a terrible disservice to sufferers from this condition, said Wesley. Patients are the losers here. Tuller cut his teeth as an AIDS activist in the 1980s. Now 62, he blogs, sends hundreds of letters and emails, and travels the world giving speeches and holding meetings as supporters send him donations and praise for his CFS/Me campaign. Tuller himself hasn't conducted or published any peer-reviewed clinical trials on CFS/Me. He has co-authored a critique of PACE. Another campaign, which goes by the acronym MAIMES, or Medical Abuse in Me Sufferers, operates from Britain. It has a standard letter for people to send to their local member of parliament demanding a public inquiry into the PACE trial. There's also a Facebook page called Abuse of Me Patients by Healthcare Professionals, which has some 680 followers. The page runs stories from unnamed patients who accuse Sharp and others of harming sufferers by calling them lazy and forcing them to exercise when they can't. Cochrane's editor-in-chief, David Tovey, confirmed that he had met with Tuller, but said the meeting had nothing to do with his decision to temporarily withdraw the review. He said complaints about the review from patients and campaigners had raised important questions about how the review was conducted and reported, which he and his fellow editors felt needed to be addressed.